Greetings everybody, and welcome to this first video in this fall's Rector's Reflections series. The purpose of this fall's offering is to highlight one of the great treasures that we have in the Anglican tradition of which the Episcopal Church is a part, and that is the Book of Common Prayer, and specifically the 1979 prayer book that we use in the Episcopal Church. Now, many of us are familiar with the parts of that prayer book that we use on typical Sundays, but everybody's not as familiar with the other portions of the prayer book that are really quite extraordinary. And so I thought it would be helpful to spend some time looking at some of those other parts, because the reality is that the prayer book has the capacity to deepen and enrich our prayer lives every single day of the week. In fact, the prayer book can help us pray on those days when we just really don't feel like praying. You ever have that happen? Oh, I do. I think we all do. And then there are those times when something happens in our lives, something difficult or painful or tragic, and we really don't know what to pray or how to pray. What a gift the Book of Common Prayer is during those times as well, because it gives us the language and the words that we need to continue maintaining that vital and living connection with God, whether we feel like doing it or not. It helps us keep that alive. So each week in this offering, I want to highlight a bit about some of my favorite prayers from the Book of Common Prayer, in the hopes that it will inspire you to spend time daily with the prayer book, exploring what's in it and using it to pray. These are going to be pretty brief videos, typically speaking. I may spend 10 minutes, maybe a little less than 10 minutes if I'm really kind of getting carried away, maybe a little more than 10, but that's about what we're going to be looking at. And obviously we're doing things under different conditions now than normal, because normally I would be setting up in Pope Hall, I would be offering a PowerPoint presentation, and then I would throw things out to whoever was in the room for some dialogue and discussion, which typically, I have to say, that was the best part. A lot of great energy, a lot of learning happened with that. We're not able to do it that way right now, but I do encourage you to make comments in response to these videos, ask questions, offer your insights, maybe share things from the prayer book that you find helpful and meaningful. That'll be one way that we can continue to keep the connection with each other alive, using the Book of Common Prayer to do so. How wonderful is that? Okay, so what I want to do for the rest of this brief video today, kicking this series off, is to do a little show and tell. I want to talk a little bit about 3 of my favorite prayer books that I have. And this is the first one. This is a leather-bound prayer book that my mother bought for me back in my middle school years, I believe it was. I remember one day we were in Memphis, Tennessee, and we swung by St. Mary's Episcopal Cathedral. If you've never visited St. Mary's, it is a beautiful church. So if you're in Memphis, I encourage you to go by and take a little tour of it. But we went to the bookstore, and Mom picked up this prayer book for me. I'll admit, didn't spend a whole lot of time with it when I was at that age. I kept it in the original box it came in for years, and it was in pristine condition when I came back into active membership in the church, in the Episcopal Church, in my mid-20s. So I reconnected with this prayer book, and as you can see, I mean, it's pretty worn around the edges. It opens up pretty easily almost anywhere. I spent a lot of time with this prayer book, and one of the things that was so helpful for me was at that time I was in active discernment about whether to go an academic route as a teacher in my life, or was God calling me to the priesthood. So this prayer book was real important during that time. As I got a little deeper into that discernment, I also was confirmed as an Episcopalian on the feast day of St. Mary the Virgin in 1996 at St. Anne's Episcopal Church in Nashville, Tennessee. Bishop Bertram Nelson Herlong was the bishop who confirmed me, and I received as a gift from St. Anne's this hardbound Book of Common Prayer that I still use regularly for morning and evening prayer back at the house. So yes, this has been a faithful companion as well. And then I have this combination prayer book hymnal, which many of you who attend St. Luke's will notice that this is what I'm using when I lead worship. It's perfect because you got pretty much everything you need, right? There's a prayer book and there's a hymnal here. This was given to me as a gift back in 2000 by the good folks of the Church of the Epiphany in my hometown of Tunica, Mississippi. And so I took this with me when Julie and a little bitty Mary Emerson and I made our way up to Sewanee, Tennessee for a year of Anglican studies at the seminary at the University of the South. And so I have been using this prayer book and hymnal to lead and participate in worship for a good 20 years. So these three prayer books have been very faithful and wonderful companions to me along the way for 20 to 30 years now. And I encourage you to let the prayer book be not just a Sunday only thing, but a faithful companion in your daily lives as well. So next week, we will start looking at specific prayers in the Book of Common Prayer. Sometimes we may only look at just one prayer and spend our whole time at that. Other times we may jump around a bit and look at different prayers. But again, I hope it will inspire you to spend more time with this wonderful gift that we have in the Episcopal Church called the Book of Common Prayer. So until then, friends, I wish you all well. Again, feel free to make comments. Let's interact some in response to these videos. I'm praying for you all. I love you all, and I'm looking forward to the day when we can reconvene without masks and social distancing to have not only worship and fellowship, but Christian formation time together in person. May God bless you all.